Сяяли зорі, ой, зорі прозорі, і синього неба у жовті поля.
We're starting the video about the letters that my mother wrote before the Declaration of Independence, and then during the Declaration of Independence and her emotions. A lot of her life at that time passed here, in this Maidan and in this street, the central street called Kreshchatyk. Behind me also you can see the central post office right there. This is the place from where these letters were sent to America. The very heart of Kyiv, the very heart of Ukraine. I'm sitting at the Institute of National Economy as an assistant at the entrance exams. I've been staying here since 9 a.m. and now it's 5 p.m. The last guy is getting ready for an answer and he has an hour to get ready, so I have decided to write of the exam in detail, since I know you are always interested in details. So, the future students of the Financial Economic Department have to speak on one of 30 conversational topics, such as the country I live in, my native town, my family, my day off, political parties in the Soviet Union, Kyiv, Moscow, London, understanding scientists of the Soviet Union, understanding writers of the USA, understanding scientists of the USA, etc. They also have to answer some additional questions on that or some other topic. Then they have to translate 5 sentences from Russian into English for checking up their knowledge of the English grammar. And the third item is reading a page of a book in English and translating it into Russian orally and a passage of it in written to make up 5 questions to the text and to define grammar forms of 5 underlined expressions in the text. The marks are 2 for bad, 3 for satisfactory, 4 for good, and 5 for excellent. To get 5, one should do everything correctly and have a good English pronunciation. To get 4, one can make 1-2 mistakes. To get 3, one can make 3-5 mistakes. And more than 5 mistakes deserve 2, the worst mark which doesn't allow the person to take the other examinations. English being the first and the most important of the 3 of them. Those getting marks 3 to 5 will take exams in geography and Russian or Ukrainian, up to their choice. Instead of English, they can take mathematics if they want to. Those getting 5s and having gold medals are admitted to the institute without taking the rest of the exams. As you probably know, education is free in the Soviet Union, higher education as well. However, many parents don't think school education is enough for entering a higher educational establishment, and they take private teachers for their kids. Private lessons are rather expensive, about 10 rubles per hour. So when the kids can't enter an institute after taking private lessons, many of the guys are very nervous. I'll have to sit at 4 exams and get about 150 rubles for that. I need money, that's why I have agreed to work in summer. But not all school teachers are invited for this job. Only the best ones, and only for 2 years, and then must be at least 1 year interval. I had the same job last summer, therefore I am allowed to work here for the second time. This year I have practically no rest in summer. I can go to my garden too seldom. Perhaps in August I'll be able to spend some time there, but in the second half of August I'll have to return to my schoolwork. Thanks God, the exams are over. I'll get about 200 rubles for it. Since my boys don't work, I need money badly. They say they are looking for a job, but I am skeptical about it. Newspapers inform us about the coming unemployment. Now, in summer, people mostly have their vacations, but in the fall we'll face the jobless problem, which is quite new here. We are also informed of the raising prices and future shortages. Now there are shortages of sugar, and we can't cook jam without sugar and use the fruit and berries of our gardens. I've been lucky today to find sugar in a small bakery shop near the institute where I worked. So I'll go to my garden today and take what is ready for cooking there. On my way home in the metro, I was reading the Arguments and Facts newspaper, the most popular newspaper in our country. Among other things, I read an interesting article about how Soviet people imagine happiness. The newspaper correspondence interviewed people near GUM, the largest department store in Moscow. There were not only Muscovites, but people who had come from other places among the interviewed ones. A 50-year-old librarian said she feels happy when she is in company with kind people. Being asked if she was happy, she said no, because she is afraid of poverty. A 15-year-old boy of Rostov region said only rich people could be happy, and since he's not rich, he's not happy yet. A 75-year-old retired woman, a Muscovite, said she's happy because having been born in a provincial town, she now lives in Moscow. She had lived an interesting life, having a good education. Happiness to her mind is being able to work honestly and take part in social life. An 18-year-old Muscovite is happy when she meets Dieter Bohlen, a popular singer. She's sure happiness is love, but she's too much afraid of AIDS. A 23-year-old boy who had come from Leningrad on roller skates states a man is happy when he has everything his soul needs. My soul needs a good motorcycle now, he says. A 67-year-old Moscow-born woman says she can't be happy because she has lost her husband at the war. She is poor and lives with her son in a one-roomed flat, though she has worked honestly all her life. A 24-year-old guy from Donetsk, Ukraine says happiness is inner comfort. One can think over this problem during his whole life and still not be able to answer it. But I am a religious man, so I am happy in my own way, he says. A 19-year-old student of Tula thinks she'll be happy when she finds a good husband for herself. She lives and hopes for it. A 32-year-old woman of Nagorno-Karabakh, it's a hot spot of our country, says she is definitely unhappy because of the war and the high prices. A 34-year-old woman of Voronezh can't imagine happiness at all. She doesn't know what can give happiness to a person at our time. A 65-year-old biologist says happiness, in his opinion, is being able to be useful to his relatives and friends. He can't define if he is happy or not. He says he has lived a long life with which he is quite satisfied. So, as you can see, many men, many minds, many opinions of happiness. I believe American people are also of different opinions on the subject. I have just asked my son Ivan if he is happy. He says he doesn't know it for sure, but he is more happy than unhappy. In his opinion, happiness is something unreal. According to him, people are living, but happiness is sleeping. Since my husband is away, I have discussed with Ivan what my husband's opinion of happiness is. He says his father's happiness is being able to learn, to get information freely. I quite agree with him. As for me, I have already written you, I define happiness as someone's work in the state of inspiration. I'm sorry if I can't explain it more clearly, but I hope you can understand me. I'm often happy. I have received your letter today, just on the eve of President Bush's visit to Kyiv. American theme, American music is prevailing on TV and radio because of it. It sometimes looks as if we are the nth state of the USA. I'm listening to the radio and writing to you. I must go to another room to watch the information program Time because it's 9 p.m. now. I'd like to see the news on Bush's stay in Moscow. Hi, it's 11 p.m. and my head is full of information, but in 10 minutes I'll come back to the TV set to watch TSN, teleservice of news, more independent news program in comparison with the Time program. I am sure you are following the news and have already learned about the historic results of the summit meeting in Moscow. But I'd like to add, I was pleased to see Barbara Bush looking at her husband with the greatest delight while he was speaking and him smiling to her. They are such a nice couple. I adore watching old couples that have preserved their mutual love and admiration of each other. Such was the case with my parents. Almost 10 years have passed since my father's death, but my mother still weeps when she speaks of him. He was the best man on earth for her, and he really was the kindest man I have ever met. And there was only one woman for him, my mother. Have I told you that he looked very much like Gorby? And when my mother sees Gorby on TV, she often says he resembles my father. Not only his face and figure are like my father's, but also his movements and smile. How strange. Midnight. I am alone at home. When I was a little girl, I was afraid to be alone at home late at night. I'm not so much afraid now, but still there is the little girl inside me, like the Matryoshka doll that I've sent you. Do you like to be alone? Oh yes, then you can listen to the loudest possible music. So there is a little boy inside you either. There is some sense in the Matryoshka doll, don't you think so? Do you feel lonely when you are alone? I don't. I like it, but not late at night. No, I'm not lonely, just a little afraid, though it may seem funny. TSN showed the corpses of the Lithuanian custom house officers. Lots of blood on the floor. We seldom see such things on TV. In general, we are not yet used to such terrible sights at all. I think this and other terroristic acts are somehow connected with Bush's visit. Well, I have recently read the 30 rubles law will be raised because of the soaring prices. To get a foreign passport for going abroad will cost 1,000 rubles for a Soviet citizen. As far as I can see it, it would be quite impossible for an ordinary Soviet person to go abroad, since in addition a ticket to the USA and back to the USSR is now about 4,000 rubles plus $400. Who can afford that? And the prices will go on increasing. I am still under the impression of Bush's visit to Kyiv. I watched everything on TV and I liked Bush's attitude towards Ukraine and Ukrainians. He stressed the fact of many Ukrainians being American citizens. He quoted Taras Shevchenko. He spoke of the beauty of Kyiv and hospitality of Kievites. I also liked his speech at the Ukrainian parliament. He said he would support the Republican will for freedom, and I think his visit is really important for Ukraine. We bought goods in our shops and stores without coupons in July, and the result was that inhabitants of other republics took from us more goods in July than in half a year when we used coupons. So the coupon system has been introduced again in August. Ukraine has to protect its poor market, or else we'll get rid of our goods very soon. By the way, we were looking forward to having our own Ukrainian currency in summer, but thanks to the Soviet government, we aren't yet able to have it. I am at my summer cottage. It's Sunday today. Many people have come to their gardens to work. Fruit and vegetables are expensive this year, so people do their best to grow them in their gardens. I am sitting in the bedroom on my bed, half lying. I'm tired of physical work. I've been gathering apples from the ground and throwing away the rotten ones. I'll take those not rotten home for making a juice and a pie. I've been also cleaning the garden of rotten tomatoes. This year tomatoes are rotten even on our balcony. That's because of some disease. Our neighbors also lament of it. There were many sticks on the ground. There were lots of rains and strong winds. That's why I have to do such kind of work now. I have also cooked some food for myself and my mother, who now works once in 3 days. So today is her day off. She is cutting out old raspberry bushes, and I take them away from the yard. Morning is wonderful in the garden. I've cooked breakfast, baked beefs with canned fish, and tea with toasts. Cut out the rest of the old bushes, cleaned the house, and now I'm having a rest. It's past 11 a.m. My mother has gone to the neighbors. All neighbors love her. She is very lively and with a sense of humor. She is very friendly too. Ours is perhaps the only garden whose gate doesn't have a lock. My mother says she is not afraid of thieves. She welcomes everybody who comes to us. My parents had 2 gardens, one for me and one for my brother. But after my brother's death, this is my garden, and my brother's garden is considered to be my mother's. As for the sense of humor, yesterday I read an article of the famous American humorist James Boren, known as president of the International Professional Bureaucrats Association. He visited Kyiv on that same day as Bush. He said humor is one of the spheres where Ukrainians not only need any humanitarian aid at all, but moreover can give it to the most developed countries. I quite agree with him. My mother has come back from the neighbors. I must go to the yard and do something together with her. Before we continue reading, I'd like to mention that in that month, in August, my brother Bogdan and I went to the Crimea for fun with our friends, to spend some time there. It's a nice place, as you know, and so just to go to the sea and walk around. Actually, this is where we were during the time when the coup d'etat started against Mikhail Gorbachev. So my mother was really worried at that time about us because there were tanks on the roads, and it was a disturbing time, but we didn't even have any idea what was happening in the country. But that was later. And for now, in this letter, you will see that my mom, Ruslana Pavlii, on that day when she wrote that letter, she went to her friend Svetlana's and she had to stay there at night. You will see why. Yesterday I got money for my work at the institute, 240 rubles, and went shopping. I bought 2 nice books about Kyiv. I'll send them to you when I am able to, and if you are interested in them, one of them shows Kyiv in fall, the other one describes Kyiv's most ancient places of interest. Please write if you need them. I also bought a Ukrainian towel and napkins, a wooden whistle, and a sewing set for threads and needles, folk style. I was looking for a t-shirt, but I saw only some t-shirts for kids aged 5 to 7. I'm sure you won't need them. I also bought a pair of high boots for Bogdan for 107 rubles, and I think I was very lucky, because they are usually more expensive. I only am afraid they will be little for him. Bogdan has called me from the Crimea today and said everything was okay. They enjoy their stay at the Black Sea. I was so excited to hear his voice. I spent the night at Svetlana's because I was afraid to go home late at night. I had stayed late at her home and then called home and asked my husband, who was at home that night, if the lanterns in the street were switched on. He said the lanterns were switched off. It happens sometimes. And I decided not to risk of going alone in pitch dark. The day was too hot today. I swam in the Dnieper. Near my house there is a beach, and took a shower 3 times. I also ate ice cream and drank cooled lemonade. I read a lot and had a nap in the afternoon. I also cleaned the rooms and helped my mother to cook vegetable salads for winter. I read in the Arguments and Facts newspaper that our country is the champion in its people using the greatest percentage of money of their incomes for buying food. 40%, maybe even more. The other interesting fact is that about 85% Soviet people earn less than the minimum for decent living. I think it's especially unjust for Ukraine, which is rich in natural deposits, is washed by 2 warm seas, and surpasses many European countries in many industrial branches. We give 20 billion rubles a year to the center and then plead it to give us money for our needs. I wonder when it will change for better. Goodbye, right soon, Rusa. How do you do? I am sick and tired of heat. It's 29 degrees Celsius in my room now. I've become a water addict. I bathe in the river every day and take 3-4 showers in addition. I have eaten 200 grams of ice cream and drank half a dozen cold drinks, and I'm still hot. I have eaten borscht from refrigerator, though I usually eat it hot. Do you know how to cook a Ukrainian borscht? I take a beet, cut it and put into cold water. Boil it for some minutes, then add potatoes, cut in halves and in quarters, then put some cabbage, also cut it. Then, while all of it is boiling, I fry bits of onions and carrots in oil and add some tomatoes into the saucepan. Then I put everything from the saucepan to the borscht and add the pepper and some salt. After boiling everything, some minutes more, I switch off the gas and add parsley. It's like a vegetable soup. We usually eat it with sour cream and garlic. Do you cook Ukrainian borscht or something like that at home? Ukrainians like it very much. They say it's very useful. I also ate pizza in a cafe when I was out in the afternoon. Yesterday I was busy cleaning my larder of moth. I took out everything and painted the shelves and the door of it with oil paint. I hope the moth won't survive the smell of the paint. Today I've seen lots of moths being dead. You see, we have lots of food, cereals, macaroni, sugar, salt, flour in the larder, and the moth has eaten holes in the cellophane bags of the food. Lots of people have the same problem because we are all afraid of the future shortages and buy foods in store. About the shortages of beer and wine, they happen too, but vodka is called convertible currency here. It's often used for paying for some services to private persons instead of money. We use an electric lighter in the kitchen instead of matches, which I haven't seen in stores for ages. And then the great events happened. The failed coup of August 19, coup against Gorby, and then the Declaration of Independence on August 24th. So now we're going to listen to my mother's impressions about those events. Dear Steve, thank you for your letter which I received yesterday. Your letter was written before August 19th. And that means that it was written in another epoch. It was sent to another country and even to another person. The metamorphosis can't be conceived by citizens of other countries. So I'll try to tell of how I feel and see it myself. Well, for me it was like an earthquake that shocked and ruined the strongest construction that had seemed too huge and powerful to be ruined totally. The decisive push was on August 21st, but on August 19th, the black cloud covered the blue sky and hid the sun as if forever. No signs of it could be seen on August 18th. I was preparing for my travel with 10 theater kids to a little Ukrainian town for participating in the first Republican Festival of Children's Movies. We had a long rehearsal in the evening, and I woke up late in the morning of August 19th. I didn't listen to the radio, and when a mother of one of my young actors called me and asked me if we should go there under the circumstances, I couldn't understand what she meant at all. She said Gorbachev had been substituted by vice president. Well, I couldn't believe it. I thought she was kidding, but then I felt she was excited and worried about it indeed. I woke my husband and informed him of it, but he thought it was some kind of disinformation. We turned on the radio and TV and found out that all the programs, Soviet, Russian and Ukrainian, were the same. Classical music the same everywhere. "That's coup d'etat," my husband said, and he was right. Then we listened to the official information. It was like a nightmare. I recollected Orwell's 1984, and I knew it would be just the same as in the book, though I thought it would last no more than some years. I'm sure you can't imagine how a person feels in such situation. It was like a paralysis, like being in chancery, like sinking. It was a helpless and shameful situation for honest people. Life was seen as almost unbearable. Thanks God it's over now, all this horror and humiliation. I went to school and tried to discuss the subject with some teachers, but they preferred to keep silence. I went to my theater to the rehearsal and told the children and their parents what I thought of it. The kids were eager to go to the festival, ignoring the grave situation. Their parents were more cautious. But the arrival of our director decided the problem. He said he just wouldn't let me go with 10 kids out of Kyiv, since the troops were close to our city already. The kids were disappointed, but nothing could be done about it, and they understood it, of course. Then I went to the meeting that was organized by the Democratic Forces of Kyiv on October Revolution Square. Now it's Independence Square. There were sky blue and yellow flags there, but there were no more than 1,000 people there. The speeches at the meeting relieved and inspired me. They spoke about Yeltsin's position, about the Narodna Rada's position. Narodna Rada is the democratic fraction of the Ukrainian parliament, and that instilled hope for some way out of the dangerous situation. When I returned home, my husband said he believed that would be for better, as the abscess had been opened, he said. We listened to the Svoboda radio, Radio Liberty. They say they didn't know if Gorby was alive or dead, healthy or ill. Well, I'm sure you were following the events and know of it yourself. On August 20th, I didn't go to school. I visited meetings and listened to foreign broadcasts. I didn't sleep at night at all. I was lying in my bed listening to Svoboda radio about the preparations for storming the White House in Moscow. I turned off the radio only at 5 a.m. I was proud of Yeltsin and other Russian parliamentarians, and I was full of admiration and pride with the Muscovites and the soldiers and militiamen who were ready to give their lives for liberty and democracy. And how mean and miserable the Yanaev's group seemed during their press conference on TV. Then I knew we should overcome soon, but it happened unbelievably soon. Sometimes I felt I was reading a detective story. On August 21st, radio, TV and meetings on Independence Square. That was all I remember. My husband said he felt as if that was like in a dream. Unfortunately, I couldn't write anything then. I didn't call anybody. I hardly slept and ate. I was inseparable with the radio. In the morning of August 21st, I went to the Independence Square and read proclamations on the walls of the underground passage together with other people, and suddenly I heard the English speech. Nobody could understand it, so I came up to an old man and told him I could speak English. He was very glad to hear it, and said he was from Boston and visited Kyiv together with his wife. She was standing near him. During their world-round travel, I informed them of the situation and assured him we should struggle and overcome. He hugged me and said they would pray for me and for my people. I saw tears in his eyes. He was crying. The old American man was crying on Independence Square. I was deeply touched with the fact, and I thought that if all my American friends prayed for me, and all the other American friends of other Russian people prayed for them, a miracle could happen. And it did happen. When I parted with the American pair, I came to a man with the radio, and he said the Russian parliament delegation flew to Gorby. It was clear the end of the case was close. I wished I could say it to the Americans, but they had already left the square. I saw an in-tourist bus in Khreshchatyk at that time. It stopped, and the foreign tourists were looking at us and making photos. We raised our hands, making victory signs. They raised their hands in response. I thought of you, and I felt your worries, and I said to you silently, "Don't worry, we shall overcome." Have you heard me? I'm sure of it. Yes, that was the first shock of the powerful earthquake, and then followed many others. Departization, de-Leninization, the monument to Lenin will soon be removed from the Independence Square, decommunization, and de-KGBization. And on August 24th, the long-awaited event, Ukraine proclaimed itself free. That was a festive day, though that was the day of mourning in Russia and our national flags were put ascent first. But then, when the people on the Parliament Square heard they were citizens of a free, democratic, sovereign state, the flags were put high and the blue and yellow colors were floating above their heads. Euphoria was in the air of Kyiv. Even my husband went to the meeting on that day, though he's not used to such things. We drank Happy Birthday to Ukraine that night. Then there were other meetings, and a wave of all kinds of information about the events of other republics, about Yeltsin's pro-empire politics as to Ukraine, the anti-chauvinistic meeting on the day of the Russian delegation arrival to the Ukrainian parliament. The earthquake is still acting. The empire is falling. Everything has changed here like in a fairy tale. As for me, I feel young and brisk, happy and inspired, free and courageous. I feel like a bird in the sky. I feel like my people, like my nation. Can you understand me? Can you share my feelings? You probably can't. It may sound humorous for you, but now when I come to school I greet my colleagues with the words "Glory to Ukraine." I'm wearing a pin with national colors which I couldn't dare earlier. The earthquakes pushed my soul too. So the summer of 1991 is over. That was the summer of summers. The most unusual and eventful summer in my life. It's 5 minutes to midnight. I visited my summer cottage today and brought home 2 bags full of gifts of nature. Do you know that people here always go with full bags? Should we call it weightlifting? Well, thanks God, we still have full bags. We are not sure we'll have them full in winter. My mother has bought 5 chickens, 3 rubles each one. They will live in our garden. She will have to go there every day to feed them. I'll be too busy to do it. The euphoria after the coup has vanished in the air. The TV news shows so many hot spots in our country every day. Hunger and civil war are not impossible here. It seems our sorrows can never end. Do you know of the present shortages in Kyiv? They are eggs. I can't give my mother an egg while she needs it so much. My boys are fond of fried eggs. Alas, we have eaten the last eggs about a fortnight ago. Garlic is also rare, but we are used to use it as medicines when we are ill. The same with sugar. I hope it's a temporary shortage. I once read that after a revolution follows reaction. Perhaps it's here already. People are irritated with no changes for the better. Newspapers predict difficulties with food and heat supplies in winter. Some people say the August coup was just a rehearsal. I miss my theater activities and my life is dull now. I'm waiting for your letter. It will help me to overcome my depressed state. I hope so. Have I ever tasted the bitter fruit of failure? Oh yes, that happened when I was 10. I tried to enter a ballet school. Everyone who'd watched me dancing said I'd make a great ballerina. But there were so many girls of my age there, as a result of the post-war baby boom, that the commission didn't let many of us show our dancing talents and sorted out those having any deviations of the needed proportions of our bodies. I was among those not admitted to the second tour. That was the greatest shock in my life. I was crying bitterly. When I was a little girl, I couldn't stand even babies crying. I started crying together with a baby. There was a Polish family living in our house when I was a schoolgirl, and sometimes the husband beat his wife when he got drunk. All the kids came up to their window and watched it, having fun, but not me. I shut my ears with my palms for not hearing the poor woman's screamings and ran away home for not seeing it. You say that it's stupid, ridiculous that a passport costs 1,000 rubles. You say it costs $20 there in your country. Now $20 equal 1,000 rubles here. But of course a dinner doesn't cost so much here. Well, we have lots of stupid, ridiculous things here. We often laugh at our own stupidity, but such things do exist. Can I, Ruslana Pavlii, change it? I wish I could. As for my opinion on the problem of Bogdan and the army, I must say that almost all parents are afraid of their sons staying in the army. It's really very dangerous. Boys are often raped, killed, humiliated, ruined, perverted there. Who wants his son to go through all this? Writing about the sacred duty, I just quoted our former constitution. It sounds like joking. Well, we do live in the land of boobies, as our people often say. I was lucky enough to buy boots for Bogdan at such a low price. I picked up 240 rubles at the institute in addition to my regular salary, so I could afford to spend half of it for the boots. I spend almost all of my money for food. I buy clothing only when I absolutely can't do without it. If I have no money, my mother helps me. And now I have 3 jobs. I work at night at 2 of them, my theater and peace education center, so I can do without work at my school at present. I hope I'll be able to survive in such a way. I get about 400 rubles there. When I resume working at school, I'll get 300 rubles more. I can also give private lessons and have some more money. I only need health and strength and time for it. The 3 boys that gave their lives for our freedom were real heroes. But I think all people who came to defend liberty and democracy are heroes as well. They were ready to die for it, and it could happen, of course. The Spiegel sensational video films were shown the day before yesterday on TV. None of the putschists said a word of repentance and sorrow for the lost young lives. Some people say they felt pity for Yazov and Pavlov and Kryuchkov when they saw them on the screen. But they had to recollect what they have done, and most of all imagine what they could do if they won. They were speaking about everything in such a way as if there were no victims at all. I'm sure you've seen the film too. Workers' paradise. Is that what Americans call our country? And we call yours capitalist paradise. There is no paradise on earth, of course. I know it, and you know it too. Do we need it here? I don't think so. And you? I am for peace, you know, but I prefer a revolution to the putschists' peace. I also want Ukraine to be free and democratic, but it can be attained only when it's independent. The center is against Ukraine's sovereignty. Have you watched the visit of Ukraine's delegation to the USA? I hope so. Yes, I saw Gorby and Boris speaking to Americans. But do you know they've never spoken in such a way to our people? Isn't it funny? That's why you'd better ask Bob Allen to call Gorby than I'll try to tell Gorby to call Bob Allen. I know for sure there will be no problem to call me in case Ukraine is a sovereign state. You shouldn't call to Moscow first then. You ask what is important to me in my country Ukraine's fragile sovereignty. That has been the dream of many generations of the freedom-loving people who were the first to introduce democracy in Europe. That's our last chance. I'm not 100% sure we'll be able to take it. The great Russian Empire is being constructed instead of the Soviet Empire. Gorby has said he can't imagine the Soviet Union without Ukraine. His mother is a Ukrainian, by the way. But many Ukrainians don't know the history of their land, their native language, culture. That's the result of the perverted education of the whole nation in the course of several centuries. I also hope the changes in my country won't hurt me. I hope the changes will be for the better. The second school term will start on November 11th. I'm going to come back to school on Monday, November 4th. Teachers work at school during school holidays here. This year there will be no October celebrations, just as I had predicted last year before the November 7th celebrations. But November 7th and 8th will remain days off, however, so we'll surely have some time for a rest next week. Since November 1st, teachers will probably get higher salaries due to their demands and the threat of the teachers' strike, but the prices will surely grow higher as well. Hi, it's Saturday, November 2nd today. I walked my mother in the open air for 20 minutes. She could hardly recognize the street and the yard. We are so glad she is better now. Of course, she is tired of her first ball. She is having a rest. On our way home, we dropped into the footwear shop which is situated in our house. The shelves were empty. There were only 2 pairs of summer shoes for ladies made by an Armenian cooperative. The price is 210 rubles a pair. We all need footwear for winter except Bogdan. So I decided to take part in the family-to-family action initiated by Komsomolskaya Pravda newspaper. It had invited its subscribers to write to them about the most urgent needs of their families, and those letters will be sent to Germany, where German families will decide what to send to the Soviet families as humanitarian aid. I wouldn't dare to join the action had it not been for my mother's illness and my stay at home without being able to earn enough money and to find the needed things in the shops. To say the truth, I don't believe I'll get what I need. I just tried to take my chance. Komsomolskaya Pravda wrote that lots of people called to the editorial board to learn what documents they had to send there. They said no documents were needed. They explained the reason why they had announced this action. It's because Germans lamented they had sent lots of things and food to help the Soviet people, but they weren't sure the people could receive it. They also wanted to know what precisely people needed. Yesterday I saw on TV a film about boxes with aid being hidden and then given to commercial shops and used for making great money. Sorry, I must go shopping. The time of the afternoon break from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. is over. There are afternoon breaks in our shops. They work, most of them, from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. with the break in the afternoon. Good evening. Shopping took a long time. I hate to stand in long lines, but this time I had to do it to get some cheese. I also bought some sausage, bread, milk, cabbage, potatoes, garlic, candies, a cake with raisins, grapes, noodles. I spent lots of money. I never know how much I spent for sure, and I seldom know how much I have in my purse, which irritates my husband, who counts everything and remembers everything. Are you the same? And I've visited 4 shops and returned home after each of them. It's so dull. Here a cheap shirt costs about 30 rubles, $1. Lunch for 2 costs about 15 rubles, 50 cents. A box of chocolate candy, about 25 rubles. A movie ticket, about 10 rubles. A bottle of fine wine, about 10 rubles. That's the old price. Now fine wine is not on sale here. Meat costs 7 rubles per kilogram. A small bag of dog food? We haven't such kind of food on sale at all. So you can get the picture now. The average new car is 50,000. A new house about 100,000 rubles. Monthly electric bill about 15 rubles. A telephone bill is about 6 rubles monthly. I suppose to understand the real level of living you should estimate it not by converting rubles into dollars, but by calculating how much food and other things can a person afford to buy for his monthly salary. For example, we can buy 10 boxes of chocolate candy for our salary, and you can buy 200 boxes for your salary. That's the real difference. By the way, I have recently read that Gorby earns much more money than his compatriots in comparison with any other foreign country leader, taken in the following proportion: a leader's salary compared to an ordinary person's salary. But in dollars, his salary is the smallest of all. That's because our country is poor in comparison to other countries. We have to ask for humanitarian aid from other countries. 1/6 of the earth with the rich soil and industrious people devastated by the artificial, lifeless system. The system is to be changed, and it is being changed at last. Let's hope our people will live decently, at least in a decade. I believe in natural order. Natural system will cure the country, though at first it will probably be painful, since the illness is too old. Perhaps the most difficult of your questions to answer on the spot is if I'd be able to leave my country, my near and dear ones. All the Soviet people have this question in their minds, at least the majority. That's not an intimate question for us and doesn't need the preamble in which you say you can ask it, as we have been friends for 2 years. Here it's an ordinary question and the answer is usually yes. As for me, I'd like to go abroad and see everything myself. Only then I'll be able to answer this question. My friend Svetlana has left for Poland, and she writes she wouldn't like to come back home. She says she feels she has wasted her life here, having worked in poor schools, without tape recorders, Xerox, and American textbooks. All that is available at Polish schools. She's written she'd got used to bananas and it's much easier to get used to abundance than to poverty. Perhaps she is right. But when I think of it, I think of a poem. Unfortunately, I don't know the name of the author. To emigrate? You've left it all behind. All unnecessary things. The landscapes of the past, the language, and the low living standards. facing new challenges. You have no time to think, to remember. At long last you've become part of what you'll never be able to understand. At the same time, I recollect Alexander Bloch's verse, "Oh, I'd like to live madly, to make everything eternal, to make all living beings human, to make done everything that has been undone." My graduates have written these very lines of the well-known Russian poet on the door of my classroom as their understanding of my inner world. That's true. I'd like to be everybody, to see everything, to go everywhere. For more than 50 years, our people have been unable to leave their country. You know my brother's story. That was the only way to live in a free world. But now the history has opened the doors to freedom. Not only out of the house, but inside it too. Concerning the future of my country, I think the August events have shown that in year 2001, Russia must be a democracy, the same as Ukraine. Yes, I have days when I'm depressed, but they are rare. Let me tell you an old anecdote. A Jew came to a rabbi and lamented he had no happiness, since his life at home was unbearable. His wife was constantly yelling and kids crying. The rabbi said, "Take a goat to your home." The Jew got a goat to his home, and his life turned into Genian hell. He came to the rabbi again and said, "What am I to do? My life was bad, but now it's even worse." The rabbi's answer was, "Take the goat out of your home." The Jew took the goat away from his home and felt happy at last. I like this wise joke. It shows the relativity of everything. Do you like it? Today was an unusual day. No more great October holiday with the military parade, salute, flags, and portraits of the party leaders. However, there was a small group of elder people demonstrating their loyalty to the October Revolution ideas. Tomorrow will be another day off, but we'll have another rehearsal. We are getting ready for being presented with a peace pole in the Ukrainian Peace Lantern Center on November 9th. You've probably heard about Ukraine's referendum, which has overwhelmingly made Ukraine a free, independent state. We are all happy here in spite of awful shortages. I am very busy these days getting ready for the first anniversary party of my theater. Lots of guests will come to greet us on December 8th. Some Americans among them. The party will be televised. I wish you could see it. So this is how Ruslana Pavlii experienced the great events, the great historical event of the Declaration of Independence in the year 1991. In the end, I just want to say thank you to the Bender family in Germany who helped Ruslana Pavlii and her family, me included. They helped us survive at that time. So this is how we finish this part of the film. In the next part, we are going to hear the story of how my mother went to the United States and all her impressions. A very rich, we could say like a book that she wrote. She called it a book. A description, a very rich and colorful description of all her emotions and experiences she had in America in August 1992. But also, of course, different events that happened before that. The next part of the movie will be about the year 1992. I hope you enjoyed this part of the movie, and I hope you will also enjoy the next part.
Гей, Україно, ненько моя, Богу дякувати вільна я. Гей, Україно, ненько моя, Богу дякувати вільна я.